Well, good evening, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, where the whole household of God is welcomed and wanted. Good to see everybody joining us tonight. Had a little bit of rain today. Give thanks for it. It's washing a little pollen away, maybe less sneezes. Isn't it interesting now in our COVID reality that when somebody sneezes, we feel like they've created a capital offense or coughs or blows their nose around us? How dare you sneeze? How dare you cough around me during COVID? Anyway, it's got to learn to take things with a grain of salt. We were very concerned, obviously, when how COVID would affect our church, and we had to make some pretty serious adjustments. And I was talking to one of our members yesterday, who's been a member for, I think, more than about 50 years, honestly. And she said, D.E., we're getting a little older and my husband doesn't get around as well. And I give thanks for the virtual connection. And they come when they can. They come when their bodies feel up to it or when they feel safe to drive. But I said, hey, worship your way. Either way, we're glad you're joining us tonight virtually. Today is April 26th. It is Wednesday. We are still in the month of April, the month of transformation. If you want to grab your Fully Awake 365 devotion, we're going to begin tonight's teaching with the devotion. And I think tonight's devotion should remind you of the 1960s, something of, I believe, The Doors. The Doors, Jim Morrison wrote this song, "Break on through to the other side, break on through." If you've seen the movie Forrest Gump, that's one of the movies in the soundtrack there. We're going to talk tonight about breaking on through. Before we begin, let's grab our prayer of surrender. If you want to turn back to page 4, we'll read it together tonight. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. Break on through the month of transformation. Here we go. Here's our affirmation. I know today that the willing sacrifice of Jesus makes it possible for me to approach God for myself at any time. Wow, interesting. And so the gist of today's devotion is questioning the need for a middleman, the need for Jesus. Now that the veil is removed, is Jesus become that new veil between us and God? It's an interesting challenge for our spiritual growth tonight. According to the biblical account, the veil in the Jewish temple, or the temple, the tabernacle of Moses, separating the outer court from the Holy of Holies, was torn into at the moment of Jesus' crucifixion. And so this veil is supposedly torn into, whether it's literally or metaphorically, that there's no more separation between God and man, between that outer court, even inner court, and the Holy of Holies, where only the priests were allowed to go. Symbolically, we have come to believe that that event represents Jesus in his willingness to sacrifice himself. I love this explanation here. Thank you, Pastor LaDonna. That's a spoiler alert. Not meet a requirement for blood initiated by God the Father. Not that God requires blood, but that we did. Our minds needed reconciliation. Showing us that the system of religion we were following was man-made and founded on an idea of separation that was not based on the truth. Interesting. Jesus' finished work on the cross put an end to that idea, not the reality of separation, but the idea, the misnomer of separation, and gave every person equal access to God. Here we go. The destruction of the veil presumably happened on its own, on its own accord as the result of Jesus' willing sacrifice. Yet over 2,000 years later, we act as if he physically still stands in the temple, waiting for us to check in with him in order to get to God. I love this comparison here. But he's not there. In fact, he never was. All we have done is replace the idea of a veil separating us from God with Jesus separating us from God. Does Jesus separate us from God? Do we have to go through Jesus to get to God? If we don't walk in the door of Jesus, can we get to God? Is Jesus protecting us from God? Did God pour out his wrath on Jesus because God can't deal with us? And all of this religious sickness is something that we are learning to unlearn at Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. He didn't have to do it. We're glad that he did. But God never required blood. So now the veil is ripped in two between the outer court and the Holy of Holies. But does Jesus stand in that space now? Interesting. When we believe this way, we make his sacrifice meaningless. He opened the door so that we could all walk in freely. But many of us still wait in the outer court for him to pick us up and carry us to God. Jesus is our transportation to God. He's done his part. Jesus has done his part. It's time for us to do ours and break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. All right, let's grab our prayer tonight together. Christ consciousness, or the Christ conscious mind. Help me to understand that there is no separation between me and God. Amen. Great devotion today. Thank you, Pastor LaDonna, for such a thought-provoking idea. I love that idea. And Jesus does reconnect us to God, but doesn't stand in the middle. Doesn't protect us from God. Reconnects us to God in consciousness. Looking forward to connecting with you again on Friday morning for our devotion. It's always a fun day for Friday. Welcome once again to Wednesday night. We are again in Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. This is week 39, not 38. I believe this is week 39. It's been such an amazing journey thus far. And so A New Earth has challenged us to go within, to be introspective, to be self-actualizing, and to take an inventory, as Scripture might enjoin us to examine ourselves. I'd like for you to, if you'd like to download the notes in your event description. There's also some questions that I sent you today. And so before we begin, I'll read the questions before we begin the teaching. But they're just to cause us to go a little deeper into our own mental inventory, how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we are growing in the knowledge of the image of Him who created us. And excited to jump into this teaching tonight. I'm going to share a conversation with you, I think just orally tonight, that really is going to bring the teaching home tonight. And so excited to share that with you. Will you do this? Just take a big deep breath with me. Take just a moment, close those eyes. As we take and give a breath tonight, we are grateful that there is no veil. There is no veil either in the temple or veil over our face. But as we have turned to God, the veil is removed. And we look into that mirror and behold, give freedom. We have the liberty now to behold in the mirror the glory of God. We celebrate tonight the beginner's mind. We walk into the kingdom as little children, curiously, inquisitively, refusing the mastery and embracing the mystery. We now make room for the Zen Bardo space. We empty out and clear out space. We celebrate the idea of emptiness, knowing that we are empty-minded but not absent-minded. We celebrate tonight truth as a journey, not as a destination, and faith as a hearing and not as a herd. Holy Spirit, feed us until we want no more. We choose to eat the manna, the mon, the whatness, the question, in order to reach the promised land of the I don't know. Amen. And so it is. Glad you're here with us tonight. A couple of themes that we've been in for our journey. Number one is the ability to recognize our own dysfunction, being our greatest achievement, that we can see our own insanity, trying to do the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. It really is kind of wasting our time. And another theme that we've talked about is the identifications that we allow for ourselves, our gender, our sexual orientation, our skin color, our culture, our country of origin, our religion, our political connections or opinions, our beliefs, our thoughts. And so we understand that we are not our physical form, neither are we our thought forms. We are not our beliefs. We're the spirits capable of having beliefs, considering opinions, considering truth. I said something years ago, and I saw someone quote it on Instagram a couple of days ago, and it says, don't believe everything you think. Yeah, don't believe everything you think. There's a lot of things we think, but we don't necessarily have to believe it. You should have more thoughts than you have beliefs. You should have more considerations than you have doctrines. Okay? Allow Spirit to guide you in into all truths, into all truth. The other idea that we've talked about is not becoming wrapped up in the ego so deeply that we can't change our role, whether we are a parent, whether we are a son, a friend, a coworker, a pastor, a teacher, a professional in some ways, that we are not defined by the role that we played, and so we have to be aware of not allowing the ego to tell us we are what we do. We are what others think about us. We are our possessions. We are our accomplishments. We are none of those things. We are the divine presence that's aware of the roles that we are able to play, but we are not any of those roles. All right. Last week, we talked about how the pain body feeds on drama. We mustered up the courage to admit that sometimes we feed on negativity. Sometimes negativity desires more negativity, and whether there's been too many days of peace, that pain body will arise again and need to stir up conflict, need to stir up negative energy because that's how it stays alive. We talked about whether we are in love or whether we're finding compatible pain bodies. That was a very difficult question to ask. Do we fall in love with people, or do we attract people that have similar pain? And then once we really commit and begin to live together, we realize, ooh, if I had known this pain body was so dense, so heavy, I might not have agreed to this process. We also asked an interesting religious question that probably made some of our tradition a little bit afraid. We asked if we should live with somebody before we get married. Should you live with somebody before you say I do? If you ever say I do, whatever that is, it's different in this day and age. Love is love. I don't believe you need a marriage certificate to be in love with somebody and to care for each other. However, the tradition is that we get married and then we find out who we married. And so you really don't know who you're marrying until you live with that person. And so Tolle's suggestion was to live with somebody long enough to see the best and the worst of them and to decide how dense, how heavy is that pain body. Is someone stuck in that pain so much that everything in their life is filtered through that? Or is it something that is more of a light pain body that can be, that you can kind of coexist with? And so that's a difficult question to answer, but it certainly was provocative last week. All right, here's the questions real quickly for tonight, and we'll jump right into the lesson. I think there are about 6 or 7 questions. Don't have to answer them all now, but you're going to see some of these in the teaching tonight. We'd love for you to comment toward it, answer them yourselves, ask it again, whatever. Question 1.
They're posted as well for everybody.
They're posted as well if you'd like to see them. Can you sense when someone is concealing a dense pain body? So Tolle talks about tonight that the pain body is just right under the surface, especially a dense pain body, and that we should have enough intuition, discernment, whatever it is, knowing to sense when somebody really is just concealing something right under the surface that's just waiting to bubble up. Question 2, can you recognize when someone's pain body is pulling you in? When they're kind of laser beaming, they're magnetic, they're just kind of they're just pulling you into their pain body. They don't want to move forward, they don't want to be at peace. And so how do we recognize that? How do we recognize we're being pulled into something and then choose not to do it? That's a very difficult both recognition and choice to make. Third question, can you distinguish between an event and your reaction to an event? That's interesting, isn't it? Tolle talks about blowing things out of proportion tonight, and an event maybe being something that is a tipping point, a trigger moment, and that are we awake, aware enough, cognizant enough of our own emotional responses to be able to differentiate between the actual event and our reaction or response to the event. We're going to talk about that some tonight. Do you project your pain body into causes you support? And I also put here advocate, things that you advocate for. Yes, I might be involved in Black Lives Matter, in human rights, and animal rights, and the environment, and inclusive progressive thinking. Yeah, all of these are things that causes we might get involved with. There's many causes you might be involved in. But can you be a part of that cause without projecting your negative, heavy pain body into the cause? That's where our conversation is going to get really, really beautiful tonight. Hopefully it's something that'll be a blessing to you. Question 5, do we help others to awaken by projecting our personal pain into the causes we believe in? When we project our personal pain into a cause, are we helping others to wake up? Or are we just kind of projecting our own pain into something, into some collective cause of some sort? Interesting question. We'll talk about it. Can we transmute personal pain into collective healing? Can you transmute your personal pain instead of projecting it into a cause and somehow tainting a cause with your own personal pain? Can you transmute that personal pain into a collective healing? Take the pain and then help others to heal from similar pain. Interesting questions tonight. All right, this is week 39. We're going to talk about dense pain bodies. Welcome once again to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. We're glad that you're here today. Some people carry especially dense pain bodies that are never completely dormant. They may be smiling and making polite conversation, but you do not need to be a psychic to sense that seething ball of unhappy emotion in them just underneath the surface. Interesting. Waiting for the next event to react to, the next person to blame or confront, the next thing to be unhappy about. The pain bodies can never get enough and are always hungry. They magnify the ego's need for enemies. Interesting. That was kind of the first question. Are we perceptive enough to recognize that pain body that's hidden right under the surface? Let's keep going because I want to have a lot of time for discussion tonight. Through their reactivity, relatively insignificant matters are blown out of proportion as they try to pull other people into their dramas by getting them to react. Wow. Insignificant things become matters that are blown out of proportion, that desire a reaction, that desire to pull people into the negativity because they need a reaction. Some get involved in protracted and ultimately pointless battles or court cases with organizations or individuals. I know a person, certainly wouldn't name that person, who's got multiple lawsuits going at all times. Got suits against former employers, hotels, fitness centers, the university they went to. Just like, oh my goodness, it's everybody's fault but yours for your life. Yeah, if you got too many lawsuits going on, at some point you are the common denominator. And I know that the law is for the lawless, so I'm not saying that we shouldn't be litigious at times, but it can become a habitual pattern in our lives. Others are consumed by obsessive hatred toward an ex-spouse or partner. Interesting, just literally consumed, can't move on from it. Unaware of the pain that they carry inside by their reaction, they project the pain into events and situations. Due to a complete lack of self-awareness, they cannot tell the difference between an event and their reaction to the event. Wow. To them, the unhappiness and even the pain itself is out there in the event or situation. Being unconscious of their inner state, they don't even know that they are deeply unhappy, that they are suffering. Sometimes people with such dense pain bodies become activists. Here we go. All right. Put on your big boy, big girl pants. Put on your big old panties, big granny panties right here. Okay. Sometimes people with such dense pain bodies become activists fighting for a cause. The cause may indeed be worthy, as many and most causes are. And they are sometimes successful at first in getting things done. However, the negative energy that flows into what they say and do, and their unconscious need for enemies and conflict tend to generate increasing opposition to their cause. All right, I'm going to read a conversation here because I think this conversation illustrates so beautifully what it takes to be aware that when we're involved in a cause, us projecting our pain into the cause does not really help the cause. We have to project purpose, design, patience, passion, energy, faithfulness, perception, perspective. All of these things can be injected into a cause that doesn't need our pain bodies projected into the cause. Okay, so this is, and I asked permission today. I actually texted Dr. Elijah Nicholas, who is a close friend of mine and is our first ordained minister, transgender minister at Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, and has taken up the cause for transgender rights, awareness. It travels literally around the world, not just America, around the world. Sits on panel discussions, trying to bring awareness to the heteronormative community and to all the human family about acceptance, about how to make room for the transgender community, about both tolerance, celebration, equanimity, egalitarianism, inclusivity, openness. All of these things are part of his calling and ministry. And so a few weeks ago, maybe even a week ago, he was speaking at a conference in Orlando. And this is the conversation that could have gone one or two ways. If Dr. Elijah allowed his own pain, which, you don't think that when you're raised in a homophobic, heteronormative United States of America that you don't have a little bit of pain as a transgender person? Yeah, there's some pain in there. But he's chosen not to project that into his cause or into the cause. And I just want to show you this because this is no surprise to me. I've seen Dr. Elijah do this many times in my presence when someone maybe unknowingly is rude or says something that is politically incorrect or that's just downright harsh. And so here's the conversation. He texted me last week, Pastor, healing on a whole new level today. Greetings from Orlando. I met with this couple yesterday, and I'll keep their names out of it. I just put this couple yesterday, R and P. P is a veteran, a military veteran, and works with veterans and employers to connect them, to match them up. When I told P about my topic, he kind of frowned in a grumpy way and said, "Why do I care about that?" Can you imagine the rudeness? Can you imagine the insensitivity of someone working for a cause like helping veterans to find employers who has just met a person and is now saying, basically, in essence, I want you to care about my cause, but I don't care about yours or you, for that matter? Why do I care about that? Isn't that what compassion can be limited to for the unawakened mind? It's not my cause. I'm not transgender. I'm not black. I'm not gay. I'm not a woman. I'm not an immigrant. I don't care about that. I'm a veteran though, so I care about that specific issue. Woohoo! How childish can we be at 80 years old? Yeah, I'm not gay. Why do I care about gay rights? I'm black. I care about affirmative action. My God. Can we wake up? Are we waking up? I think we are. I think we're doing a pretty good job at Spirit and Truth of waking up. So listen to the response to this rudeness, to this event. Listen to Dr. Elijah's love in embracing, instead of reacting, pulling someone who is living in ignorance, knowing that, here it is, his current consciousness is not synonymous with his eternal capacity. In other words, Elijah saw in this man not his prejudices, not his selfishness, not his ignorance, not his lack of tolerance or inclusivity. Elijah saw an ability. This man is not his ignorance. This man is just stuck right now in ignorance, but that's not his capacity. Here we go. Why do I care about that? I listened, and in the end, agreed with him and told him I understood where he was coming from. Didn't argue or even try to convince him. He appeared shocked and just said, "You do? Okay." Made him think. I understand where you are. I don't necessarily, it's not that my feelings are hurt right now, but I understand. That's okay. Everybody's not on the same place. Everybody's not in the same space. Fast forward, both R and P attended my presentation. Wow. At the convention today, came to tears, gave me about 10 hugs before we parted ways, and wants to figure out how we can help others going through something like this, something like Dr. Elijah going through the transformation, being transgender, trying to help to educate people on all that surrounds the struggle of that. Amazing human beings, listen to this, Amazing human beings with beautiful spirits, just seeking to understand and be understood. Do you understand now why Dr. Elijah Nicholas was sent to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary? Because I have witnessed him countless times for people in our congregation who did not know the right terms to use, did not know the right semantics. Some just innocently saying things that they didn't know they shouldn't say. Some just basically saying just downright rude things. And Dr. Elijah just kind of laughing, saying, I love you, and I'm going to pray for you. I hope that the Holy Spirit touches your heart. Wow. That's disarming, isn't it? I told him, we worked out together quite a bit, and I would say, what did I do to deserve you? What did I do to attract your maturity, your patience, your ability to not project your own pain as a reaction to someone else's ignorance into the cause? So that's one of the questions we're going to ask at the end tonight. Does your pain body belong in the causes that you represent? What if Dr. Elijah said, you know what, bump you, so-and-so. You can kiss this and you can do that. How dare you come up and speak to me like that? You know what, I'm actually young and pretty strong. You're old. Don't make me put this forearm in your face. There could have been a lot of things that were said there. It could have gone from being verbally reactive to being aggressive and being testosterone driven and challenging somebody. Yeah, they could have gone a lot of ways. How are you going to speak to me that way? I don't even know you. Elijah embodied Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. King, Mother Teresa, Jesus of Nazareth, the Buddha, all of these, Thich Nhat Hanh, embodied that one universal spirit of love, and through that love transformed someone that would not have been transformed if we project our pain into the causes that we support. Wow, what a lesson. I'm kind of speechless after I seen it. And the last part, Elijah said, I just love God. Happy Monday, Pastor. Love you. Last paragraph, we're going to jump into our discussion tonight. Usually, they also end up creating enemies within their own organization. So that means I believe in the cause, but because I haven't dealt with my own dense pain body, it's just a season where there's peace. There's just kind of a surface of peace. But not only do I start reacting to enemies to our cause, I start projecting my pain body into the cause. Now I can't get along with anybody in the cause. Anybody? You know anybody like that? Maybe it's us sometimes. Who knows? Maybe both. Okay, within their own organization, because wherever they go, wherever a dense pain body goes, they find reasons for feeling bad, and so their pain body continues to find exactly what it is looking for, more pain. I joined a cause to help, and now I've brought my pain into the cause. Difficult, isn't it? I met some years ago with a bishop, a lesbian bishop, and her wife, and they were wanting to form an organization and include me in that. And I said, well, I certainly appreciate the invitation to be a part of the organization, but I do think we need some more voices at the table that aren't just LGBTQ plus affirming. There are those who are making the transition, but they're not quite as far along as we are in thought yet. And they could use being around us. Their hearts are open, their minds are open. They're not where we are yet. And she jumped down my throat, lectured me, you white, privileged, entitled man. You don't know what you're talking about. You're so privileged, and we shouldn't have brought you to this table. And I said, well, here's the truth, the difficult truth for you to hear. I don't have to be at this table. I am a white, privileged male. And so I could have been just like the man with Dr. Elijah and said, why do I care? Why do I care about gay rights? Why do I care about lesbians and transgender? I'm as heterosexual as anybody I know. I'm as white as anybody I know. I'm here because I bring you a different perspective. That means maybe I'm here to help you with your pain body. That as you're starting this cause of inclusivity, there are pastors like me, but they're 10 years back. And we can help bring them along. But since you know everything and I know nothing because I'm a white privileged person, maybe I shouldn't be part of your organization. it was a difficult day. And I left in peace and invited her to leave my church as well in peace. But she was projecting her pain into the cause that she wanted to build. And it doesn't mean we don't have pain. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have boundaries. It doesn't mean that we can't, when someone is present, when they say something that is rude or ignorant, that we don't take it as a teaching moment, but we can't project pain into it. That's a whole different stratosphere of thought. Amen, somebody? All right. We are mindful tonight that we are vibrational creatures in a vibrational universe. And so if we take our pain into the causes that we support, we just bring our pain into the cause and we cause more pain in the causes that we want to help people. All right, let's talk tonight.
All right, let's see here. Miss Bobby shared, yes, we are not absent-minded on our journey. We have a destiny and a path to travel. We have to be careful not to get caught up in other people's chaos and their drama. Try to stay focused and neutral and not allow yourself to get pulled in unnecessary pain.
Love that, Bobby. Yeah, being aware that we can't help. We read a book a couple of months back, Bobby, or we quoted from it. I think it was called Compassion Fatigue. And it relates to what you're saying, Bobby, that even in the medical profession, those who are called to help heal, they deal with a lot of stressed out, hurting people. They deal with people who are demanding, who come in telling the doctor what they know about medicine and what the doctor doesn't know, and blaming the doctor and blaming the medical assistants. And if they don't self-care, those medical professionals, they will begin to give care that is diseased. And so, in other words, they call it compassion fatigue. I'm so worn out with sick people coming and putting their heavy pain body on me, that my care is now just give them the pills they want, get them out of my office, And so we need that awareness, Bobby, don't we? Yeah, that's beautiful. Let me do this before we do any more discussion. I'm going to read real quickly the questions again. Can you sense when somebody's concealing a dense pain body? Can you recognize when somebody's pain body is trying to pull you in? Can you distinguish between an event and your reaction to the event? Do you project your pain into causes that you support? Okay. Do we help others to awaken by projecting our personal pain into the causes that we support or believe in? And can we transmute personal pain into collective healing? All right, I just want to bring those back before us again. Let's talk some more.
Miss Mary shared, I had such a dense pain body, or so I thought, when my father and stepfather died. I had no feeling and did not attend their funerals. Months later, I had a trigger moment when I would see fathers and daughters together, which caused me to react with sadness. Never knew that my pain body extended to that area.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Whew, Mary, that's thank you for sharing that sacred space with us. How many people can relate to that? How many people do we know that say, look, I ain't going to such and such funeral. Do you have a visitor tonight? Did you want to say hey to Miss Mary? I hope she hasn't turned the table over. my big old Lola just came in here, my big dog. It's that's something that I think all of our families kind of deal with a little bit. I'm not going to so-and-so's funeral. That person was mean to me. They were abusive. Yeah. Going to somebody's funeral doesn't mean that we are justifying or condoning the way that they maybe treated us in life. But I do love it, Mary, that you realized that there was something there, that all it took was a trigger. And so I think that was question maybe 4, Mary, I think that you spoke to with that. And that is, the event was the funeral. And then you separated the event from your reaction to it. I love that, Mary, that you were able to do that. Thank you for sharing.
All right, let's see here. Right Reverend Richard Copeland has, who had a birthday this week, by the way, I think answered almost all of them. I'll try to match them up. But thank you.
The MVP of Wednesday night.
Thank you for answering the questions. And those of you who are on, I have posted them in the chat as well, so you can refer back to them. Let's see here. So Richard, in response to 1, can you sense when someone is concealing a dense pain body? Said, yes, I consider it a call for help. It's very interesting.
Beautiful. Great, Richard. Yeah. Did he have a...
Keep going.
keep
Keep going. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Two, can you recognize when someone's pain body is pulling you in? Yes, when I say to myself, I do not recall receiving an invite to your pity party.
I'm an unwanted guest. I don't want to be at this party. I love that, Richard. Yeah. Can you sense when someone's concealing a dense pain body? I love the answer. I didn't want to be pulled into your pain body. That means you recognize it. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Let's see. 3. Can you distinguish between an event and your reaction to the event? When they cannot say anything positive and always say negative things.
Love it. Yeah. I do something with that, Richard, weekly. And that is I still kind of tiptoe around and watch some Christian television. It's so foreign to me now. It's just not part of my world. It's hard for me. It's not hard for me. It's just I don't get anything. But I do watch several. And I don't agree with everything they say. But I'm trying to be conscious of the person, the organization, my reaction to it. And is there anything positive? If there's something positive, I try to glean it. It's not just all negative. There's always something positive we can get. I love it, Richard.
Let's see here. Do you project your pain body into causes you support or advocate for? He said yes when my reaction is overly negative.
Yeah. I think I would answer the same way, Richard. Yeah, I want to be like Dr. Elijah all the time, but I'm not always that way. I'll give you a confession, Richard, that I think all of us can handle tonight. But part of my thesis at Emory, at Candler, was studying the survivability of inclusive religion. And it was difficult for me to separate the event of me researching that topic because it is my life. Inclusive religion is my life. And studying quantitatively different religions around the world who have to maintain financial solvency by using things like fear and rewards, goods and bads, heaven and hell, blessings and cursings, whatever. I had to separate myself from the fact that I believe I'm a pretty good communicator. I think we have good music at our church. I think we're friendly. I think we kind of do an orderly service. I think we're engaging and welcoming. And I think we're right kind of in an area where so many around us, especially in that Avondale Estates area, could connect to what we teach. We're interfaith. We're gay inclusive. We're even embracing of atheists and agnostics, secular humanists. And yet we don't really have an influx of those people. And I have to separate from me, Richard, taking it personally. That here we are in a cause trying to model inclusivity, interfaith, gay rights, Black Lives Matter, whatever we all are, everything we are. And that it sometimes is not supported financially by those who believe in the cause the most. I have to be able to separate myself on almost a weekly basis and say, that's not your business. It's not your concern. You do what you're called to do. Don't let your reaction be the same thing as the event. And so I try to keep, what is the event? Staying positive, staying in that space of, hey, blessed coming and blessed going. I'm not always there, but I try to be mindful of it. Thank you, Richard. That's beautiful. I'm taking too much time responding to this. These answers are great, Richard.
Let's see. 5, which was, do we help others to awaken by projecting our personal pain into the causes we believe in? He said, no. In fact, I have left causes and been turned off because of others.
Yeah, it can be that way. I had an experience. I'll tell this quickly, Richard. Anecdotally, the first gay affirming church that I spoke in, Tammy Faye Baker Mesner spoke the first night. Bishop Carlton Pearson spoke the second night. I spoke the third night. And I was the only speaker of the 3 who, in my inclusive teaching to this LGBTQ plus affirming congregation, I tiptoed into interfaith teaching. And the response and the vitriol I got, Richard, was pretty shocking. I wasn't ready for it. And I was there as a straight man, as a heterosexual, and willing to be part of the cause for human and gay rights. And you would not, if I told you how ugly and how hateful some of the members of that church were to me, because I dared say that the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of Gandhi, the Buddha mind, I dared say that just as the gay community is welcome at our church, so are the Muslims, the Hindus, the Buddhists. They wanted to be very clear with me and made sure that I left that conference quicker than they didn't let me speak at the other things I was assigned to speak at. It was a difficult moment for me. It made me not want to go back to such heavy pain body. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and that people in that community aren't there to heal. I get it. But I wanted to not be drawn in anymore. After that first invitation, I had so many other invitations, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be around all this heavy pain body, because the gay community is wanting to be embraced, but they don't want to embrace. They only want to embrace gay Christians. They don't want to embrace the human family. And I found that to be very hypocritical and too wrapped up in the pain. But it has come a long way, and many churches have come a long way. That might have been close to 20 years ago, at least 15 years ago. And so look at us. We've come a long way, and so have many of the gay affirming churches in Atlanta that aren't where we are, but they have come a long way. I'm gonna channel the spirit of Dr. Elijah and try to be a little bit more patient. All right, I think question 6.
All right, yeah, last one here, 6, was can we transmute personal pain into collective healing? And he said, yes. It's all about the manner in which it is done. That is, with the right spirit.
With the right spirit, yeah, it can be. I've shared some personal pains in my life, Richard, publicly. And if we are caught up in blame and shame, guilt, regret that never seems to go away, we can't really heal the collective. But if we give thanks, if we live in gratitude for the lessons, and also live in gratitude for the wisdom that the pain brought, then we can help to be part of the collective healing. Look at Richard, A++. I know you didn't do it to get a gold star, but thank you for sharing your heart with us tonight.
Now, I don't have any more comments specifically related to the question, so feel free to still take some time, and if you want to respond to the specific questions. But a couple more comments here. Phoenix wrote in, trauma can bring in illness. It manifests physically. In my own life, this is true. Diagnosis of a pain disorder, which, I assume is physical pain. So diagnosis of a physical pain disorder is insult to injury. My healing needs to take place deeper than my skin. To unpack trauma by forgiving is traumatic in itself. A vicious cycle, because logically I am able. However, when new issues surface, they are related to the trauma and the cycle begins again. Just trying to breathe through this process. Physical pain brought on by past trauma is so deep.
Wow. Look at the relation. They're almost like cousins, aren't they? Yeah, so emotional pain, physical pain. The first person, I think she would be okay sharing this tonight. The first person who shared tonight, Miss Mary Hayes, she and I have known each other for many years. But she shares openly sometimes about her physical challenges, and is constantly self-actualizing, constantly self-aware that I am not my physical pain. That's easy for me to say because I don't have the same challenges. Yeah, it's not necessarily easy for me, but maybe it's even insensitive. Yeah, we're not our bodies. We're not these. But yeah, my body is getting older. I have pretty good case of tendonitis in both my elbows right now. But all of us have different levels of physical pain. But the physical pain can become an emotional pain body. It really can. What's interesting, Phoenix, to me, and this is I'm just sharing this as something for me to aspire to, for sure. I went to see Eckhart Tolle speak at the Fox Theater a year ago or so, 6 months ago, I don't remember. But when he came out to speak, he has a pretty severe curvature of his spine. And I don't know if I don't know if he has scoliosis or some type of degenerative disc that's going on, but he's bent over pretty good, and one shoulder is higher than the other. And he never mentioned it. I'm sure he knows that it's something that people recognize if you were paying attention. But he's one of the people that I thought in my life I would never have known this. I've read most of his books. I've never heard him talk about it. What an amazing spirit that doesn't carry that physical pain into his emotional vibration. And I'm sure that that's not something that happened overnight for him. I'm sure that was a process of becoming aware, of stepping out into the divine presence that is not the pain body, that is not the reaction to the pain, or is not trapped in the physical form. But man, I've read a lot of books by preachers, teachers, philosophers who don't completely presence or put into praxis their teachings. But when I was in Tolle's presence, I was like, man, this is something special. I was almost in tears in his presence. Very, very powerfully positive, loving, embracing, accepting vibration. And so I'm not there, Phoenix. I'm sure that all of us have struggles like that. But I do love that you tied those things together. There's a connection between the physical pain and then what becomes emotional pain at times. It's hard to get around it. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being honest.
All right, a couple of great comments coming at you, but I just want to say for this, Miss Irma, this comment is so wonderful that next time you come to church, I want to see you do a victory lap for this one. I think D.E., you're going to love this about Dr. Elijah. I'm going to read it just like Irma wrote it, okay?
Yeah.
Irma said,
Dr. Elijah, by the way?
I don't know. I can't tell. If you are, I might have missed it. There's a lot of people.
If you're on Dr. E, let us know you're here.
Yeah, there's so many on tonight. There's so many of you. Yay, we're all together doing this together. It's awesome. Let's see here. All right. Irma said, this comment might seem a bit strange, but when I first met Dr. Elijah, she helped me with a medical emergency in the church for a friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
At the time, I thought she was gay, and I was okay with that. As time passed and I witnessed the transition, I became so happy for him.
Look at that. Awesome.
If one has a great heart, it doesn't matter what sex they are, or in this case, identify with, they are just good people. But
wow.
Love it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Irma. How beautiful. How beautifully embracing and honest. I think, Irma, all of us have to make adjustments. I remember when I wanted to be called D.E. and not Donnie Earl anymore. It was an adjustment for a lot of people. And it's not that it hurts my feelings when people call me Donnie Earl. I just don't really want to be two names. And that's no slight at all to my parents. Were respectfully trying to honor my grandfather Paulk, my uncle, and also my father Don Paulk. And so I get it. I totally get it. We're in the South. But I started speaking in churches in Connecticut, in Long Beach, in Philadelphia, in Toronto. I was starting to speak in churches all over the nation. In Phoenix, Arizona, I was speaking. In Seattle, in parts of Oregon. And they were like, let's welcome Donnie Earl Paulk. And I was like, oh, God. Already you have people shut you down because they think you're a Southern racist, homophobic, uneducated bumpkin. And I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that. I don't want to be that now. But some people prefer to call me that, and that's okay. I allow them to do that, especially if we have some history. I do prefer to be called D.E. But one that was close to me said, Donnie Earl, I've known you as Donnie Earl my whole life, and I'm just not going to be able to make the adjustment. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to adjust. And I said, that's interesting because when I first met you, your last name was this. And I called you Mrs. This. And then you went through a divorce and remarried. And then I called you this. And then you divorced again and remarried. And I adjusted to your new last name. So you've asked me to call you 3 different names because you've divorced and remarried 3 times, but you can't adjust to my name. I appreciate the love. And that was probably too defensive. It was probably a little overreactionary, but maybe in some cases necessary to say all of us want respect. All of us want to be able to create our own lives. You want that right, but you don't want to give it to others. Yikes. Yeah. I'll give you this, Irma, and this may help all of us to some degree. And I hope Dr. Elijah is listening because he was very patient with me in this. I met Dr. Elijah as Tasha. And I learned to call her Tasha. We became friends. I spoke at some events with her before she made the transition to becoming Elijah. And I did slip up with my pronouns a couple of times. I might again, but I would never do it purposefully, and I would apologize and be like, "I'm so sorry." But every time, not many times, but the few times that I have slipped up and said she, and I would look at Elijah's face like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did not do that on purpose. I just learned. I knew you as Tasha." He says to me, "Pastor, it's okay. It takes time. I'm glad you're trying. I'm glad you're aware of it." What a beautiful spirit. That's okay. But to tell somebody, "I ain't changing. I ain't gonna call you no man. I ain't calling you a he," that's what's hurtful. When you're trying, whatever it is in life, whether you're trying to connect with a child that you've not connected with, whether you're trying to connect with a friend or a person that you don't agree with politically, as long as there's space to try, as long as there's effort there, most human beings will say, "I appreciate you trying. I know you're trying the best you can, and I forgive you. I know it wasn't out of malice or intentionally trying to hurt me." But I am so proud, Irma. I am so proud of the transition in your mind that you're making. Look how far we've come together. Just beautiful. Thank you, Irma.
All right, I expect that victory lap. I'm telling you, Serma.
Get the ring.
All right, Dr. Sharonda responded to really 4 and 5. They go together. Do you project your pain body into causes you support or advocate for, and do we help others to awaken by projecting our personal pain into the causes we believe in? So she responded, might it be possible to bring a pain body to a cause in a way that brings forward the positive aspects of it? For instance, environmental justice, because we all want to be healthy and live in a healthy world.
Yeah, and maybe that pain body, isn't there a lesson in everything, Dr. Sharonda? And so it is painful to feel the injustice of an inhumane water supply, of chemical factories being built in impoverished areas. That's difficult. Yeah, that's not something that I've been all that exposed to, and so I recognize my entitlement and my privilege to that degree. I think it can. I think if we're aware of it, Dr. Sharonda, you seem to be a very self-actualizing person at all times. And so maybe that pain body can help us. I think we share things anecdotally from our own autobiographies. My pain body has been brought into some of the cause, because aren't we all still healing to some degree from what religion did to us? At the same time, grateful for what religion did to us. I am both grateful for my Christian upbringing and still a little bitter about it. I think as long as we're aware and the pain body doesn't become so reactionary that we drive people away. But I think I would leave it to you to find an ability for our pain body to also be a teacher. That's great, Dr. Sharonda. Beautiful.
So Miss Callie asked, physical DNA connecting to the spiritual DNA?
Physical DNA connecting to the spiritual DNA.
Maybe it's in response to what Phoenix shared, but...
Yeah, maybe that is a more scientific way to say it, Callie. That our genetic code is what it is, and we can't change it that much or at all. Maybe generationally we can, but being aware of that as it is transmuted into our spiritual DNA, and hopefully letting it transmute positively, not negatively. That's an interesting connection, Callie. Thank you.
All right, so I'll save this for last. Richard wrote back in and said, okay, I recently reacted to a friend's very dense pain body behavior. I told them, you're going to like this, D.E., Do you always have to leave blood on the dance floor? Michael Jackson.
Wah, wah. I love it, Richard. My kids are so funny. My sister, we're fairly often in conversations with groups of people. And we love to laugh. We love to be, because anybody who's been through pain in life enjoys laughter, enjoys letting your hair down. Yeah, there's healing. Isn't joy healing? Laughter is good medicine. But there's usually somebody in our midst, and sometimes it's a religious thing. Sometimes it's just someone that's not listening to what we're saying and just wanting to talk about their own thing. But they'll just deflect and bring something else in. And my kids or my sister are so funny. They'll be like, wah, wah. In other words, why do you have to leave blood on the dance floor? Why do you have to project the news, the events of the world? Do you know how many children were molested today? Did you see that cat caught in a tree? Why can't we? Can we just laugh today? Yes, we're aware of world events. We certainly are, but they don't have to. You don't have to bring blood to the dance floor every time. I forgive you, Richard, for saying it, because I might say it too. It's okay. Yeah, we all need to laugh and not be brought down. Thank you for tonight's discussion. How amazing this has been, and everybody provided us with a little different perspective. Some more vulnerable, some shared from sacred space, and we thank you for sharing that tonight. I did want to let you know again that we are only virtual this Sunday. We're hopefully allowing some of our volunteers to get a day with their family, a day with friends, a day of some self-care, and we'll be back in person on the first Sunday in April. Looking forward also to our virtual communion on Sunday. Friday morning, 7 a.m., we will have our devotion time together. It's always a fun time. I want to give some shout out to some beautiful peoples. Live stream Facebook and YouTube. Emma Callie, Pastor Fred and Mary, congratulations on your promotion, Fred Hayes. What? Myrna, Mary, Rosaline, hey, Miss Rosaline. Phoenix, Tamara, Taria, Cindy, congratulations, Grandma Cynthia, little grandbaby boy on the way. Miss Anita, who is so precious Sunday. Don't you love that we go and grow together, Anita? Terry Johnson, Dr. Sharon DeB, Irma, Dr. Ray Madison, Ben, and Vicky. Call Ben up and tell him what you want. JL, Josephine, Alma, Horace, Ethel, Jen Stevenson, Pastor Don. Buenos dias, señor. Bésame mucho, señorita. There you go, Dad. Jason, Ivy, and Margie, the most encouraging, high-vibrating people maybe I've ever met. Beautiful, beautiful people. Doreen, Joanne, Bobby Moore Howard, Randall Renfro, Billy Smith, his sister, Pastor LaDonna Paulk. Did you like the Doors comment tonight, LaDonna? Miss Maud, happy birthday again. Happy belated birthday, Miss Maud. Get to see you Sunday. Donald, Dinah, and Brandon Garrett. Beautiful family. Elaine, Jellybean, Glenna, Mackenzie, Pastor Gloria, and Howard Lenora. Richard Copeland, Reverend David, Michael, Cersei, loving you guys so much. Let's read our closing affirmation together. Look how good our discussion was tonight. We're over time. How dare you have such a good discussion that we go over time? Come on, let's read our affirmation together. Tonight, I'm willing to recognize dysfunction. If suffering is the normal state of humanity, I do not wish to be normal. If I've created God in my image, I will surrender to the truth that I'm made in God's image. I am neither an external physical form nor any internal thought form. I am a spiritual being capable of experiencing physical form and the observing presence, open to considering a diversity of thoughts. Whew! My present thoughts do not reflect my eternal capacity. Dr. Elijah showed us that tonight. My potential for awakening to self and spiritual transformation are endless, as am I. Amen. So it is. Thank you guys. We love you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. Go in peace. We'll see you Friday morning.